Hello and welcome to another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Re-Watch-Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it is episode number 066 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from May 1st, 1993, taped April 19th, 1993, at the Knox Central High School in Barberville, Kentucky. My name is Arya, and welcome to the show. And as always, welcome us, my co-host with the co-most. It's Trae. Trae, how you doing today?
What's up? Howdy. Been kind of a stupid bullshit day with a lot of minor annoyances that accumulate.
Would one of those minor annoyances be the 30 minutes it took us to get this show started today?
Yeah, that was the most recent one.
This is what happens when we come up with a brilliant idea to tape what we talk about before the show starts. Because now what we talked about before the show started was just shitty audio issues.
Yeah, well, that was probably better than actually starting the show and realizing we had a 6-second lag, because that was brutal.
Yes, the 6-second lag was a fun one. I must tell you that. But tap on wood, fingers crossed, it is all set, good to go. And motherfucking...
I feel like you counted off some seconds there just to troll me.
Motherfucking A, I'm getting my Zoom notice that my internet connection is unstable, which is cue for reset my router again. Let's see how long this goes. Maybe that'll be one and done. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, let's not waste any time. Let's just go to the intro with Bob Caudle and Dutch Mantell.
Welcome to another exciting action-packed hour of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Professional wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it. Hi, wrestling fans. I'm Bob Caudle, and this is Dirty Dutch Mantell. And I tell you, we got a great hour this week, Dutch. We're going to see our Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion, Tracy Smothers, in action today. Also, we're going to see the Heavenly Bodies, the Rock and Roll Express. And we're going to hear about the Rage in the Cage and the Last Tangle in Tennessee, which is going to occur in Johnson City on May 15th. And what a night that's going to be. And I tell you, who are you going to talk to today on Down and Dirty?
Hey, I think this is the first. I have a special guest on Down and Dirty with Dutch, and I'm going to delve into his deepest psyche. I'm talking about the master. Kevin Sullivan will be my special guest today on Down and Dirty with Dutch. So all you people, pay attention. We're going to find out what makes him tick today.
I don't think you're going to find anything, Dutch, when you delve down in there. What about the Beat the Champ now?
The Beat the Champ, let me look in here. I'm going to draw a name right out, and the survey says to meet Bobby Eaton today in the Beat the Champ tournament, Primetime Brian Lee.
Wow. All of that, fans, right here. Right now, let's go to the ring.
Wow. What a coincidence that on Bob Eaton's last night in the territory, win, lose, or draw, he's got somebody who has a chance of beating him as an opponent.
Isn't that interesting?
I know. By the way, so today...
Dutch's signs this week were Dutch 4 and U.S. Senate. And knowing what I know of Dutch Mantell's personal views, I'm going to give that a hard pass.
Well, today we're going to have a whole bunch of people wrestling. Tracy Smothers, the Rock and Roll Express, the Heavenly Bodies. And then he says the first time ever Kevin Sullivan's on Down and Dirty. Sullivan was on like a month ago, remember? When they were somewhere in a dark room, but it was just the middle of the ring with the lights turned off.
Yeah.
For those out there keeping count, that's about a 3-second lag between me finishing my sentence and Trae talking.
Yeah. It's not ideal.
No, it's not. Well, let's see how long we last, because this could be a a show to remember for, not the best reasons. Smoky Mountain champion Tracy Smothers
Could be a show to forget.
Yeah, this isn't going to work. So let's take another 20-minute timeout. I'm going to stop. I'm going to reset my router again, and hopefully third time's a charm. If not, we'll just do this fucking thing tomorrow because this shit is just crazy. All right, talk to you in a minute. And welcome back.
What we should have recorded was the idiotic string of words that I would spout whenever you told me to just say something.
Yeah, I figured it was pointless to even try to record something at this point, but hey, this is why we try to record these stupid pre-shows.
I was just looking around my room and saying whatever I saw.
So, before we get into the Avenger versus Tracy Smothers, which was about 10 minutes ago in our time and 10 seconds ago in everyone else's time, what the hell, what is in your room that made you say New Jersey?
Oh, that I don't know. That just popped into my head.
Okay. All right. So, the Avenger versus Smoky Mountain champion Tracy Smothers. This is the first time we've seen the Avenger since last week when he lost to Tim Horner, which was the first time we saw him since the other time he wrestled and lost on the show.
I was going to ask if you remembered that he was on the show last week.
Yes, I do.
I did notice the new Chirons this week.
There you go. Trae is on the ball. I'm on the ball. The audio's on the ball. All two of our listeners are on the ball. This is going to be a great show.
Right on.
So they announced that Tracy doesn't do non-title matches, which technically means that the Avenger, at 0 wins and 2 losses, is getting a shot at the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight title right now.
You know what? I need to pour through Cage Match and start tracking who is the linear Smoky Mountain Wrestling champion.
I mean, maybe I'll be surprised and find out something different, but I would tend to believe that it is pretty on the nose.
It's funny. I've been tracking the linear IWGP World Heavyweight Championship ever since they established the unified title in 2021. And so far during this G1, the linear championship has changed on every show with block matches.
Nice. Who's got the title now?
Naito just won it back.
Oh, who did he beat?
Okay, so Naito, who is the champion, was the linear champion after he beat Jon Moxley at Forbidden Door. He lost on the first night to Shingo Takagi, who lost his next match to Shota Umino, who lost his next match to Gabe Kidd, who lost his next match to Sonata, who lost his next match to Tetsuya Naito.
So it's good to know that Naito beat Sonata at the G1 this morning.
By the way, I have also been tracking the linear AEW World Championship since its inception, and that will be decided for the first time in about 8 months this Sunday at WWE SummerSlam when CM Punk defends against Drew McIntyre.
I was gonna say, wouldn't Punk be the linear champion at this point?
Yes, he would.
Which I know, just if anybody actually cares, strongly enough to be mad, it's something that would make people mad.
I think it's funny. That's the point of the linear championship, is to just see what happens. Stuff like this makes it interesting.
Indeed, it does. So during this match, White Boy went out to the announce desk while Mr. Ron Wright rolled to the ring to watch the match and eat some popcorn. White Boy points out in the commentary that Tracy never pinned him in the ring, and actually, that's a lie. Tracy did not beat White Boy to win the Smoky Mountain title. Tracy did beat Dirty White Boy during the original Beat the Champ TV title 4-way, when Tracy beat him, Killer Kyle, and I think Jimmy Golden was the other one in that 4-way, and he pinned all 3 of them. So technically, Tracy, did pin Dirty White Boy. Actually, if you trying to think of who the linear SMW champion is, it might be our TV champion, because Tracy, I think his only loss was to was it Killer Kyle that he lost the TV title to? And then he lost it to Horner, who lost it to Eaton, who is defending it on this show.
He lost it to the Night Stalker.
Oh, I'm sorry, Night Stalker, not Killer Kyle. I apologize. I didn't mean to besmirch Brian Clark like that. So yeah, the TV champion might be the linear champion.
I'm gonna look into this, and I'll give an update next week.
Sounds good, and we'll look forward to that update. Now, Avenger misses a top rope headbutt, in case you weren't sure it was Chris Candido or anything, and got pinned after a jaw jacker. Now, from what I could tell, now this is kind of funny. I looked at Cage Match. This may legitimately be Chris Candido's only Smoky Mountain heavyweight title match in the entire 2 years he's in the territory.
Huh. That's I definitely don't want Chris Candido to continue being an enhancement guy, but I do want to acknowledge that he's great at it.
Oh yeah, and I think that's why they got him under a mask at this point, because they didn't just want to beat him, but they wanted to teach him Southern style. Because,
have you ever heard of a show called NWA Grand Slam 93?
I don't think so, no.
It's like April 93. It was it's branded as an NWA show, but it was the Pro Wrestling America out of Minneapolis and Dennis Coralluzzo promoted show. And the most famous match, I guess, from it is the Lightning Kid and Sabu, which was pretty cool. But actually a far better match that was on that show was Chris Candido against Jerry Lynn when they were both really young.
I mean, Jerry Lynn was 40, really young.
Jerry Lynn might have been born 40.
Probably. So White Boy attacks after the bell. Actually, he tried to attack after the bell, but Tracy got the best of it. Mr. Ron Wright, who was still eating his popcorn, dumped the popcorn out, and oh my God, there was actually a foreign object first, but then there was a can of spray paint in the popcorn bag that after White Boy knocked out Tracy with what I'm assuming was brass knucks, White Boy takes his yellow spray paint and sprays a yellow stripe down the back of Tracy Smothers.
I love the idea of keeping a gimmick in a bowl of popcorn.
And yeah, I like that at least they had some popcorn in there, so it wasn't absurdly obvious that it was some sort of gimmick. Although, I mean, it's wrestling. Of course, if Mr. Ron Wright's going to come out with popcorn randomly, there's got to be a gimmick in there of some kind.
I keep hoping that one of these days Ron Wright will bequeath the chisel onto somebody.
I don't think that happens. I mean, it may be, but I don't think so.
Just an indictment of Jim Cornette as a booker if that never happens.
Honestly, I think we're close to the end of Mr. Ron Wright as a full-time manager. I mean, full-time with an asterisk, because he really only did the TV tapings and the Knoxville shows.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunate. I love Mr. Ron Wright.
He's a great man. So Tracy Smothers is about to turn heel, and after this promo that I'm about to play, I'll tell you why.
Now, of course, here is White Lightning Tim Horner and Tracy Smothers. And I've seen a lot of things done to guys, but nothing like this. I don't think I've ever seen happen in a ring.
Let me tell you something, Bob. White Boy, you might as well put the strap down my back, too, because we like brothers. What you do to one, you do to the other. This man here can eat 10 penny nails and spit out a barbed wire fence. So you bit off just a little more than you could chew. Talk about waving that flag. I'm not even going to unroll it. He's going to kick your butt.
No. That's exactly right. Hey, Dirty White Boy, the battle rages on, man. The battle rages on. The problem with you is that I've got what you cherish more than anything in this world, and that's a Smoky Mountain heavyweight title. It means as much to you as you burning my grandfather's rebel flag. You'll go down as far as to jump somebody and spray them with yellow paint. By God, I'm not a coward. Tim Horner's not a coward, and he's not going to wave that flag, and I'm going to light you up like a symphony orchestra. You want to dance with me? I know all the steps, pal. I've said it before. I've been on that side of the fence, and I can play as dirty as the rest of them. And it'll be a cold day in July before a nothing happening, stinking Yankee, yellow-bellied, sap-sucking dog. When I'm done with you, you will change your name from the dirty white boy to dirty white trash.
Fans, we'll be back right after this.
Now, is Dirty White Trash really a worse name than Dirty White Boy?
Well, nobody's ever written a catchy song called Dirty White Trash.
Yet. Maybe this is what you need to do with your life.
Become a songwriter?
Yes. I can't imagine any reason why that wouldn't be a successful idea.
Maybe because I have zero musical talent.
Probably. All right.
Funny.
Mhm.
Here's another piece of trailer. When I was in 7th grade, which was the first year that you could, I joined the choir, and halfway through the year, my voice changed because I hit puberty, and I got kicked out because I couldn't sing anymore.
I love that they kicked you out of 7th grade choir.
Yeah.
By the way, the reason why I said Tracy's turning heel was because when Caudle tried to interview him, he pointed Caudle towards Horner to talk.
That'll do it.
Now,
Horner vowed.
Yeah.
Horner vowed that he would not unfurl his long white object.
Yes, he will not take it out of his pants. We've made a lot of sexual innuendo this week.
Most of them about Tim Horner.
Of course. Why wouldn't you make sexual innuendo about Tim Horner? Why
if anybody on this show is a not a sex object, was a sex symbol, it's Tim Horner.
Oh my God. That's just awful. Why would you say that about poor Tim Horner? Tim Horner might be listening to this, and we just mocked him on this very program.
Look, if
Tim Horner's listening to this, and he's offended because now we are mocking him.
Seriously, we've been mocking Tim Horner the whole time I've been here.
Oh, we were mocking him for a year before you were here.
I mean, I think we're fair because we do always acknowledge that he is a good worker.
Yes. We are fair when need be. And as much as you hate Tim Horner, we always have to point out, yes, Tim Horner is a very good professional wrestler. And yeah. Now, so Tracy is getting ready for his match at the Volunteer Slam with Dirty White Boy for the Smoky Mountain title. Coward waves the flag. And it's a type of match that you either get a screw job, a heel win, or a screw job in a heel win. So things aren't looking good for Tracy, I must tell you that.
I don't know that there's a finish for this that they would do that isn't some kind of fuck. Because you either got to do a fuck finish or you got to make somebody look really weak. And I don't know. I don't know how I would get out of this one.
Now, I know we mentioned this last week, but in case you're in the Smoky Mountains and you need a bed for your head, check out the Holiday Inn in Corbin, Kentucky. It used to be at 2615 Cumberland Falls Highway, but I know that you mentioned last week that the address, they may have moved or they may have had their address, their building number renumbered or whatever. But either way, the Holiday...
Just go to the Cumberland Falls Highway, and if you don't see it at that address, keep going.
Yes. And if you don't see it going that way, turn around and go the other way, and you'll see it there.
Yeah, it's somewhere.
Yeah. And if it's not there, well, there might be other hotels in Cumberland for you to check out.
I would hope so.
Otherwise, it's Kentucky. You're probably better off driving to another state. Let's go to Primetime Brian Lee, who the funny thing is, this is not the start of a Brian Lee heel turn, or at least it's not supposed to be the start of a Brian Lee heel turn. But we'll get to why I'm talking about that here in about 2 minutes.
And with us right now here is Primetime Brian Lee, and Brian is getting all prepared and all keyed and all ready for the big volunteer slam. Right, Brian?
You're exactly right, Bob. Volunteer slam. I can't wait. Rage in the cage. It's all coming down. And
wait a minute, fans. Brian, if for you fans that did not see last week's program, let me right now introduce you to Tammy Fytch, who is the young lady that's filed a discrimination suit against Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Now, believe it or not, she wants to at least look at the possibility of becoming a manager or some high-up official within Smoky Mountain Wrestling, correct?
That's right. Brian, I've studied a lot of wrestlers in this area, and you seem to have some potential. You have a little bit of ability, and you're certainly big enough. But I think you just need a little bit of guidance. So if you sign this contract, I can tell you every move to make. You can be incredible.
Hey, what do you say to that, Brian?
well,
Wait a minute, here,
Miss
Smoky
Fytch-
Mountain Commissioner.
Miss Fytch, I know that my lawyers have asked me to give you some leeway because of your lawsuit. But I can't allow you to come out here and interrupt wrestlers, especially this man. He has a chance today to beat the champ right here on TV, and you're interrupting him. I can't allow you that much leeway, so don't be asking him questions that he's not interested in. Just a second, Commissioner. Let me answer the little lady's question. If I want a woman to tell me what to do, I'll get married, and honey, you're definitely not my type.
I guess that answer is no, right?
They're obviously insecure about their masculinity.
Oh, fans, I'm sure we're going to be hearing more in the future about that.
Okay. So do you know the backstory about Tammy Fytch and who her wrestler was supposed to be?
No.
Okay, so you've been watching WCW Saturday Night, and I don't know how long he's been off the show, so he may not have been on it since you've been watching, but it was supposed to be Tony Atlas.
Oh, yeah, I did know that. Oh, yeah.
But
okay, I do know that story now.
Because that's why Fytch keeps talking about she wants somebody big and dumb to come in, and I'm not saying Tony Atlas is dumb. I'm saying that's a thing. She wants some big dumb guy that she can, boss around. And so the first person she goes to is the biggest guy in the company, Primetime Brian Lee, and of course he turns her down. Well, ish, because Tony Atlas was to start the next TV taping. However, in real life, Atlas had been having trouble with his wife. He'd been cheating on his wife while in WCW, and he decided to try to make his marriage work instead of being on TV with a hot-ass 20-year-old.
What do you think Brian Lee's type is?
Apparently not hot-ass 20-year-olds.
I just can't.
Or maybe not as assertive women.
I do personally favor brunettes, but if somebody is as fine as 20-year-old Tammy Fytch was, I ain't got no type.
Yeah, I'm a fan of brunettes and black-haired girls myself, but yeah, I would not have kicked 20-year-old Sonny out of bed. By the way, I did laugh because this is all still setting up like Tony Atlas is coming in. So I laughed when Primetime Brian Lee goes to start talking. Bullet Bob runs in and says, "Hey, don't interrupt this man when he's trying to talk." It's like, motherfucker, what did you just do?
Okay, so I'm about to spoil something. So if you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead about 30 seconds, okay? All right.
Okay.
So I know eventually Brian Lee is going to hook up with Tammy. Like at what point do they pivot toward that plan?
Honestly, I think really soon because Atlas is supposed to start at the next
Yeah.
taping, and the next taping is in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was assuming so. I didn't know if that was the first thing I kind of thought it was. So I don't know. I knew that, so I looked at this and I was like, well, he told her no for now, but I don't know. I didn't trust it, but that's probably just because I had prior knowledge.
Yes. I just laughed at Bullet Bob interrupting him to say that she shouldn't interrupt him.
Irony.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of really good audio this week, definitely. Uh, Now from here comes a very important commercial.
Yes.
It is a
I
commercial
wrote it
for
down.
the Rock and Roll Express fan club. And
I
if
wrote
you
down the whole
join,
address.
okay, I didn't write down the address, but
What do you think will happen? What do you think will happen if we send 1995 to Rock and Roll Express Fan Club, PO Box 1279, Morristown, Tennessee 37816?
I'm going to bet we'll also get a brochure for Smoky Mountain videotapes and merchandise catalogs. I think that's the same address.
That'd be awesome because I can't find the Volunteer Slam anywhere online.
Volunteer Slam 93, Rage in a Cage. I
Yeah.
was gonna ask you if you were gonna watch that too, but I guess not.
Have not been able to find it. It's not in any of the Smoky Mountain house show collections that I have been made privy to.
We'll have to. I'll take a look off air and see what I can find here for you. Even though you're the one who actually wants to watch the whole show, I just sit here and be
Absolutely.
hey, it's probably going to air next week, or not next. Well, actually, no, it won't be next week. Or probably the week after. Um, but anywho, so if you join the Rock and Roll Express fan club for only $19.95, which in 2024 money is close to $40, you'll receive a personally autographed 8x10, a bandana, photo buttons, a quarterly newsletter, a membership card, plus you get entered into a contest where you can win their tights. Yes, you crazy sexed up women of the Smoky Mountains. This is your chance to be able to sniff the crotch of Ricky and Robert's tights.
Because we all know how difficult it is for the fans to get into the tights of the Rock and Roll Express.
Yes, I bet there are a whole bunch of women who are like, man, this is finally my chance to know what Ricky and Robert smell like.
They probably
All
could have
right.
sold tickets for that at the fucking gimmick table.
They might have. I mean, if you think about it. Although the problem is, these people down in Tennessee and Kentucky are asking them to write out their name and address. They may not be able to.
Okay, it's one of the commercials that's on every show. Either the bring Smoky Mountain to your civic group or the other one, the merchandise one. It always shows there's a shot of this blonde girl that's so fucking cute.
She's out of place on the show.
Maybe.
I thought you were going to talk about how bring Smoky Mountain to your high school as a fundraiser. Here's video of us hanging multiple wrestlers,
Well, what's more fun than a hanging?
especially in the South.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I see. I get to make fun of the South apparently because I'm from the North. So, and by the way,
And
this whole North
I get to make fun of the South because I'm from the South.
this whole North and South dynamic, does it really work when we both agree that the South sucks?
I don't think that the South is intrinsically bad. I think it's got a lot of problems that should be addressed, and not enough people want to address it.
All right. So we got another promo here. It's with Dirty White Boy and our favorite manager, Mr. Ron Wright.
All right, fans, and with us right now, here's the Dirty White Boy and the legendary manager, Mr. Ron Wright, who's got that white flag. I have a hard time believing that you're going to watch this man in the ring suffer, get banged up, get beat up, and not wave the white flag.
Let me tell you something, Mr. Caudle. Right now, me waving this white flag will be the one and only time anybody in the world will see me wave this flag. When I come out to the match, this flag's going to be rolled up. I'm going to have it stuck down in cement and have it locked down to where there won't be no way that it can be waved. That Tracy Smothers, these people just got a little glimpse of what's going to happen to him. They're going to have to take 10 men and 7 ambulances to get all of his body parts up on different stretchers to get him in an ambulance to take him to the hospital, and maybe some doctor might be good enough to get him back together. You just seen what happened to him. His real colors come out here in the front of millions of people right on TV. He's got a yellow streak down his back, Bob, 1.5 miles wide. You've seen it and everybody's seen it. And I'll tell you, a lot of these old people around in this part of the country better get down on their knees and do a lot of praying, because that boy's done got himself in a heap of trouble with me and my northern New York friend here, I'll tell you that.
And you're happy with the fact that the flag cannot or will not be waved?
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, because you see, I love it when Tracy Smothers beats on me, punch me. You busted my stinking head open. But you know what? I like it. I don't think you do, and I know Tim Horner don't. So like I said before, it's going to look like Tim Horner's at the races. Oh, please, don't beat on him no more.
Everybody that comes that night better have a strong stomach, because it's going to be bloody.
All right, fans.
Baby, right?
We're going to be back. Don't go away. Right now, let's take time out for this.
Okay, so that's another great Ron Wright promo. They're gonna tear apart Tracy Smothers at a point that'll take 10 men and 7 ambulances to carry Tracy Smothers away.
This was a hell of a strong promo week, wasn't it?
It really was. It's like, it's sad that like half the people in this damn show aren't going to be here much longer.
No, I know.
But I love that while Mr. Wright was talking, Dirty White Boy is like playing with the spray paint. He's holding it to Cottle's jacket. He's then showing off the Yankees symbol because he's wearing the New York Yankees jersey, which even from the North, that makes him a big ass heel to me too. And White Boy says, this is my favorite. He says he likes to bleed. He doesn't think Tracy does, and he knows Horner doesn't. That's a bit of inside baseball there for you.
Yes. Now, I have never seen any evidence that Tracy Smothers has any compunction about bleeding.
No. And I mean, even if he did, it's like he accepts the fact that he's the top babyface in a Southern territory. You're gonna bleed, I
mean, if you don't want to bleed, like, and you think you're going to be the top babyface in the Southern Territory, you're just a fucking idiot, aren't you?
You're fucking Tim Horner. No, I'm sorry. That was, what's her name? Pam Lawson. Yes. By the way, I have a spoiler for you. And I don't know if you know what happens at Volunteer Slam, but I have a spoiler for you. Ron Wright will not wave the white flag. I repeat, Ron Wright will not wave the white flag at Volunteer Slam 93. And that is all I'm going to say.
Interesting.
Again, yes. So up next, we have the Rock and Roll Express versus 2 men who don't even get introduced because the show is so tightly edited. It's Paul Lee and Scott Campione. I honestly forgot that the Rock and Roll Express weren't the tag team champions at this point, just because the titles just keep switching back and forth between them and the Heavenly Bodies that I wrote down tag team champions Rock and Roll Express without even thinking.
Yeah, and then you then later when the bodies came out, you were like, oh shit.
Yeah. Of course, during this match, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's Rock and Roll Express versus Paul Lee, Nature Boy Paul Lee, and Scott Campione. The finish is not in doubt here. But Caudle and Dutch spend a lot of time talking about the last tangle in Tennessee, not to be confused with the last tango in Tennessee, which I've been calling it now for like a month.
Me too.
Thank you to our listener for not pointing that out. And they pretty much both pinned Paul Lee with a double drop kick, and Scott Campione didn't even bother breaking it up.
I hate it when they do one of those double pins and then I have to backtrack and try to figure out who was the legal man so I can write down what the legal pinfall was.
Was Ricky Morton the legal man?
Ricky Morton was the legal man as best as I can determine. Well, wait, Paul Lee, it's like watching like an alternate universe where Ric Flair was a job guy.
This is what Buddy Landel would have been, but he did sing Moon River during that I Quit match with Horner.
I think Buddy Landel was a significantly better worker than Paul Lee.
I seem to remember like the last Buddy Landel TV match before he got fired was teaming with Paul Lee, because they did a gimmick for like the first 6 months, like 3 or 4 times. Somebody was taking a jobber under their wing. Like Dutch had Carl Styles, then he had Barry Horowitz, and then Buddy Landel had Paul Lee, and every single time it was dropped with zero explanation. Like they tried kind of with Carl Styles, but I think Carl Styles, Corny hinted at it one time. Carl Styles was a bit of a goof, and that's why he got dropped. And Barry Horowitz was essentially a full-time WWF jobber at this point.
So I had never heard of Paul Lee until he showed up on. Do you remember the fucking Talking Shop-a-Mania that Gallows and Anderson did like a few years ago? That was
during
very
the
silly
pandemic?
and goofy. Yeah.
Yep.
So he was on there, and I was like, "Oh, okay. This is some guy who's been doing a Ric Flair ripoff gimmick, working one Saturday a month for 20 years or whatever." And then I didn't realize until I saw this. Oh, he was a regular job guy in Smoky Mountain
for 20 years.
Yeah, 30 years.
Oh God, it hasn't 30 years. Motherfucker, my back hurts now. By the way, we're taping this on my nephew's 14th birthday, which is also one of those God, I feel old moments.
Wow.
So Dutch talk crap about the Rock and Roll Express, even though they'll be teaming with the Stud Stable at Volunteer Slam. And speaking of the Stud Stable, let's go to them right now, and more specifically, Robert Fuller.
Well, Jimmy, here we are, man. We're back on the teeter-totter, good and bad, man. Seems like we got our highs and we got our lows. We got the 10, man. We got the match we've been wanting. We got Cornette right where we want him. We got his bunch. Kevin Sullivan, we're not worried about you, your sidekick, Heavenly Bodies, or nobody else when it comes to a 10-man tag. But I'm going to tell him something, Jimmy, and I'm sure you stand behind me. Rock and Roll Express, we're going to be your partner just one time, baby. But don't expect me and Jimmy to carry the whole darn load, because we're not going to get out there and do your wrestling and ours too. And then one last thing, boys. Then comes the big one. The big loser leave town. That's between the Heavenly Bodies and the Rock and Roll. One of the losers is going to be out of here, and then the big winner, the Stud Stable, going to have the rest of the pickings, boys. I'm going to be guaranteeing you something. The winner of that match is going to be the greatest loser of all time, because you're going to beat the biggest, baddest team that ever walked in the Smoky Mountain area. I'm talking about the Stud Stable. And one thing you can be guaranteed of, we're going to wind up with the whole Smoths belts and all, Jimmy.
All right. So we'll get to the Rock and Roll Express promo in a minute. But sadly, this is one of the last Robert Fuller promos we're going to get.
Well, he must not have been at this taping, because when Jimmy Golden came out by himself at the end of the show, and this was a pre-tape, so Robert must have been somewhere else.
I know you're a bit behind on watching your wrestling that we're not talking about on the show, but I believe it was this very weekend he debuts on WCW Saturday Night.
Oh, yeah, I gotta get caught up with it. I just know it's gonna get worse and worse, and then I'm gonna be like 2 months behind, and I'm gonna give up on the whole thing.
Do you remember like 5, 6, 7 years ago when I used to watch the G1 every morning, like you're currently doing, and you would have to unfollow me on Facebook because, well, I'd be watching it live and you'd be watching it 3 weeks later.
No, I would be watching it like later that day, and I would wake up and check Facebook, and like you would have posted a bunch of spoilers. So yeah, I used to for a couple of years every August, like clockwork, I would have to mute Arya on Facebook.
Um, he guarantees that the winner, by the Robert Fuller guarantees that the winner of the last tangle will be the biggest losers. Stud Stable are gonna win the belts, and like I said, sadly, that does not happen. Not even the match. Like, it's important to remember, like, the match doesn't even happen.
I think, so it's just been back and forth between the bodies and the Rock and Roll, right? Did Fuller and Golden never got a minute with the belts?
Nope. The only other team,
travesty.
Yeah, the only other team that got the belts for a minute was the Fantastics last year, Bobby and Jackie Fulton. When they had like that's another one. Like, I've been talking about how it's too bad Corny's wasting all of his really great angles now when Smoky Mountain is just getting popular. It's like that Heavenly Bodies Fantastics feud was pretty fucking great last year. That's going. I think that's worth going your way to see.
I don't think I've ever seen this version of the Fantastics. How did they compare with the real Fantastics? Bobby and Tommy Rogers.
I mean, it's hard to really compare them. And I mean, in case you're not sure, not Tommy, but Jackie Fulton, oh my God, what's his name? George Hines. He was George Hines in All Japan. And they were a perfectly fine tag team. And I don't think they're actually brothers, but they actually do look a decent bit alike. So that was good. I thought they were a pretty good team. Like, it was the early days of Smoky Mountain. They do a tag team title tournament, and it is so painfully obvious that these two teams were the cream of the crop. Like, even if they were bad, they were the cream of the crop, like that kind of thing.
Because Rock and Roll weren't there right at the start, right?
No, Robert Gibson was in the first match. It was him and Killer Kyle.
Okay.
But yeah, because Morton was still in WCW until like June of '92, and then they did the angle to bring Morton in for the August '92 show last year, which may, like, mind you, we're not watching the house shows because obviously not all of them are taped, and and I'm not watching all these live events, but that Rock and Roll Express, the debut when Morton came in, may to this day still be the loudest pop in Smoky Mountain history. And that was just 1,000 people.
Was it very high pitched?
Oh yeah, definitely. By the way, as you could kind of tell when we finished up the Robert Fuller promo, that is segueing into a Rock and Roll Express promo with Bob Caudle. Let's go to that now.
Right now, here they are, the Rock and Roll Express, and you just heard the studs say that they'll hold up their part in the cage, but they want the first crack at the winners of the May 15th match, Rick.
Let me tell you something, Bob. Now, we don't want to be partners with the stud stable as much as they don't want to be partners with us. But let me tell you one thing, guys. We will hold up our end of the deal. But if you double cross us, I guarantee you there'll be hell to pay, baby. And now, the stud stable say they want the winner of the team or the loser leave town between the Rock and Roll Express and the Heavenly Bodies. Well, one thing is for sure, Rock and Roll's here to stay. We're not here to play. So be ready, stud stables. You'll be wrestling us, baby.
All right, fans, that's it from the Rock and Roll Express. And right now, let's watch this.
Okay. I'm not going to play that. It's not even because I'm afraid of a copyright strike. I'm just, I'm not a fan of slow country music. I'm not a fan of country music at all. Sorry, country fans. It's just the thing. Anyway.
I'm a big country fan.
Well, it is what it is. So they mentioned that, hey, they don't want a team with a stud stable either, but being the valiant baby faces they are going to team with them, and they're going to hold up their end of the bargain By the way, what was that address for the Rock and Roll Express fan club? The P.O. box number?
P.O. Box 1279, Morristown,
Yep.
Tennessee 37816.
That is the same P.O. box number as the send your self-addressed stamped envelope for a free merchandise catalog. In case.
Well, maybe we can kill two birds with one stone.
Hey, it's not what you make, it's what you save.
Was there, this is a random question, but I was scrolling through the Rock and Roll Express's 1993 on Cage Match earlier. And I saw they also have a war tour in like August or July. Was there like some kind of go between Smoky Mountain and War, or was it just a coincidence that multiple Smoky Mountain guys are doing war tours this year?
I think it might just be a coincidence. It might, maybe not. Maybe like it was just like, they may have reached out to an American promotion to try to get some gaijin over, and obviously WWF and WCW weren't going to be interested, and Jim wasn't interested in any of their guys, or may just not have been able to really afford to bring them in. But hey, we'll send you the Rock and Roll Express and Primetime Brian Lee between TV tapings or what have you.
Yeah, maybe Tenryu probably knew Ricky and Robert a little bit, because like he did a few shots for Crockett. They did at least a tour or two of All Japan when Tenryu was still there in the late 80s. So I don't know, maybe that's it.
We mentioned Morton accepts the challenge for the match with the stud stable, and like I said, spoiler, it doesn't happen. Volunteer Slam is the last two matches of Robert Fuller and Smoky Mountain. Golden is going to wrestle one more TV match, and he wrestles a handful of house shows, but he's gone in June. So,
sad.
I'm
gonna miss
mind you, Cage Match doesn't tell us, hey, they cut 6 promos between now and then, which, hey, if that happens, great. But I'm not expecting it. But, we're winding things down here. They then, like we mentioned, some random slow country song from the early 90s plugged the last tango in Tennessee on May 15th in Johnson City. They make a specific point. Now, I've talked about how Corny has been flagrantly ignoring stipulations from the beginning. Now, they do make a point. At no point during this commercial do they say that it's the last match between the Rock and Roll Express and the Heavenly Bodies. They say it's the last match between Gibson, Morton, Lane, and Pritchard. So technically, they're not breaking their stipulations, at least this time.
That's I'm all about careful wording.
Yes. And all right. So from here, we're going to go to Down and Dirty with Dutch with Kevin Sullivan. It's about 2 minutes, 40 seconds, and hopefully it's enough time for me to run to my kitchen and fill up my cup of iced tea. And while I'm doing that, y'all listen to Kevin Sullivan and Dutch Mantel.
My special guest on Down and Dirty is none other than the master, Kevin Sullivan. Let's hear a big hand of applause right now for the master. Mr. Sullivan, can I call you master?
You certainly may. And may I call you Dr. Dutch?
Yes, that would be very good. I've heard a lot of comments. A lot of people say you're sick. I merely say that you're misunderstood. Is that correct? You think you're misunderstood?
I'm certainly misunderstood, but Dr. Dutch, do you mind if we sit down?
No, sit down.
Sit down?
Sit down.
You sit down with me.
I will sit down with you. Since he's more comfortable sitting down, people, that's why we're doing this. Is a psychiatric little session right here. I had a little deal. I want to do a little word association with you. When I say a word, I want you to tell me what you think. What about the word butterfly?
Baby white seals with big brown eyes looking up at me when I have a club and they're screaming, "Don't hit me!" and I smash their heads and I smash them and I crush their skulls.
Well, that's a real good answer, Master. Let me give you another word. Flower.
Oh, I think of the Night Stalker maybe at a family reunion. He's carrying a platter of steaks. Near the grill, he trips and falls, and his face gets on the hot coals, and his face is stuck to the hot coals, and his whole family's trying to pull him back, and the flesh is running off of his face.
Let me say another word. Cage.
A tranquil waterfall, a stream through a nice, beautiful park.
What about rage in the cage?
A tranquil waterfall, a nice stream in the park, but the stream turns to blood, and big chunks of flesh and broken bones go over a waterfall full with kidneys, intestines, and spleens.
Okay, let me say one thing. You say the Night Stalker has betrayed you. How do you deal with a man that has betrayed you? Your comments very quickly.
Very quickly, meaning like this? Yeah. Very quickly is Night Stalker. Just remember this. I'm the master, and you're the pupil. Seal face?
Okay, fans, there you heard it. Another lesson with Kevin Sullivan. Lay right there. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Don't go away. Bobby Eaton and Brian Lee coming right up.
Breaking news, I made it back from the kitchen. Oh my God.
That's good.
So that went 2 minutes, 40 seconds. In that time, I ran to my kitchen with my big empty cup. I grabbed the iced tea mix. I dumped a scoop in the cup. I then proceeded to drop the cup and the iced tea mix on the floor. Thankfully, I've got a broom and a dustpan right there. So I swept it up, put it in the garbage, and was able to fill up my cup with new iced tea mix and water. And I'm now back to talk about this Kevin Sullivan promo.
What kind of iced tea mix you use in there?
4C. I don't know if that's a northern thing or you have it down there.
I'm not familiar. I'm Southern, so I make a gallon of sweet tea with I figured out how much sugar it was. It's 5 scoops of the little thing. I think it's a significant amount of sugar. I was born with a huge ass sweet tooth. I have a very high threshold for sweetness. My sweet tea might kill you.
My best friend growing up in high school, Washko, his dad made what was called the tea of death, and that was basically a mix between northern iced tea and southern sweet tea, and it was pure diabetes. Now,
I was last weekend. We were hanging out with some friends. You know, when we played Poetry for Neanderthals, and we all went and did a Whataburger run for the group. And my friend had half sweet tea, half lemonade, which I'm a big fan of, an Arnold Palmer. But he said it was like the sweetest thing ever. And he had his wife taste it, and she said, "Oh yeah, it's way too sweet." I'm like, "Well, let me taste it." And I tasted it, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's about right."
Yeah, it's funny, talk about Arnold Palmer. It's like, for me, an Arnold Palmer is just a regular iced tea. But I'd never even heard of Whataburger until Steve Austin did a promo about them in 2003.
Me too. Because I didn't grow up in Texas.
I honestly wasn't sure where in, if it was just a Texas thing or if it was all in the South.
See, when I would have had Whataburger for the first time, maybe 2012.
Interesting. Yeah,
I have an idea.
Let's have a podcast talking about food.
Well, that too. Go ahead and finish, and I'll tell you.
Well, I was then, when you were talking about sweet tea, I was going to talk about the only time I've had proper official sweet tea, and who knows how proper and official this is, but it was in the South, was when my brother and I went to Atlanta for WrestleMania 27. We went to Abdullah the Butcher's House of Ribs and Chinese food, and we had sweet tea there.
How was Abby's Chinese food?
I remember they were actually out of ribs, so I remember we got chicken and it came with fried rice. I remember it was pretty decent, but that was when Abby was going to the Hall of Fame, so he wasn't there that day. But it was good, I thought. This was when I found out that Southern sweet tea is not served cold.
Since when?
Well, I just assumed because it was warm there and no one seemed to bat an eye about it.
That's very sure. Was it not iced?
I mean, there was ice in it, but it wasn't like it was like you took warm tea and put ice in it. Like,
Okay, here's the thing. Here's what that is. I know what that is. That was very fresh tea. Like they just made that tea and put it on ice. Now, see, I don't like to use ice in drinks because it takes up space that you could use for drink. So
Yes.
I make a big jug of tea and then put it in the refrigerator until it gets cold so I can drink it fresh. But yeah, I have definitely, when you make, because sweet tea, you know how to make tea. It's hot or whatever.
Yeah.
And then real sweet tea. Okay, this is something that pisses me off. When you go to like a restaurant and you ask for sweet tea and they're like, oh, we don't have sweet tea, but we have unsweet tea and sweetener. Is that okay? No, it's fucking not okay. Putting sweetener into unsweet tea does not sweet tea make, okay? In proper sweet tea, the sugar is part of the mixture. And when you have that delicious mixture and it's a fresh jug of tea, and then you got to have some right then, sometimes you put some hot tea on ice and it's an experience. That's what happened to you there, I'm sure of it.
Possibly. I gotta say, when I thought about all the things we're going to discuss this week, you losing your shit about the proper way to make sweet tea was not on that list.
It's not the first time. That's not the first time I've lost my shit about how to make sweet tea.
That's one if we ever do a best of episode. If we ever decide to call it in one. Anyway, what were you going to say before I interrupted you to talk about Abby?
Oh, so as you were playing the audio, I was kind of scrolling Twitter and I came across a post. Somebody says, my favorite pastime when I'm bored is choosing a random date in history, finding shows that happened on that date, and fantasy booking a card with the wrestlers on those cards. And I think that would be a fun exercise for us to do sometime.
That could be an interesting bonus show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the cut of your jib, you little jib cutter, you. Now, are we just picking one specific show, or like every show that's ever happened on, say, July 30th? And
it would be July 30th, 1996, or what it would be a specific date, and all the shows that happened on that date would be, anybody on those shows will be eligible.
Interesting. We will have to look into that here. So by the way, do you have anything about Down and Dirty with Kevin Sullivan? All I wrote was they sat on the mat and did the word association where Dutch brings up random innocent words and Sullivan loses his shit.
Quality, class.
Yes.
Kevin Sullivan shit. Very entertaining. And like just the Dutch being so kind and delicate and considerate of Kevin Sullivan's condition. That was very nice.
I mean, when you have somebody going through, that kind of issues, you don't want to, be a dick towards them. You lay on the niceness, the overly niceness sometimes.
Man, I wish people were nice to me when I was having mental health issues.
I was nice to you.
That wasn't directed at you.
Well, Heavenly Bodies with Jim Cornette, the actual Smoky Mountain Tag Team Champions, versus Bobby Blaze and Robbie Eagle, so Bobby and Robbie in one match. The follow-up on what we talked about last week regarding Bobby Blaze, he's going to be here for the next year. He then takes a break and then comes back in 95 and is here till the bitter end.
I don't know a whole lot that he's good at, but he had a hell of a hot tag in this. I don't mean that he made the hot tag and made the comeback. He sold and then did like a really good roll and flip to the corner and hot tagged out.
Yeah. He is a very talented person. He had a little bit of a run in WCW in 98, when everybody was under contract at WCW.
Yeah. So do you think when Jim Cornette goes suit shopping, he just goes through the rack and finds the loudest thing in there and says, yeah, that'll make me look fucking obnoxious.
I would be disappointed if that's not what he did. Yeah. By the way, in case you were curious, in case you were worried, the Heavenly Bodies did win here. Pritchard almost dropped Robbie Eagle on his head with a sit-out powerbomb, or maybe he didn't, but I just thought Eagle was about to land on his head. And this is the penultimate TV taping match for Stan Lane.
Dr. Tom is a little bit of a moves guy.
Oh, definitely. And it's funny because, like, and I understand why everybody is mad at each other, but this is in many ways is what Dave Meltzer was trying to say when he compared the Midnight Express to the Young Bucks. Because the Midnight Express did do a lot of moves. Like, no, they're not doing the Young Bucks number of moves in a 5-minute match, but they did a lot of moves for 1987 wrestling.
Yeah.
But
I think a lot people did. It's an issue of scale, and everything has scaled up in the past 30 years.
Honestly, it's like, again, I get everyone's point in that, and I told Dave this, and I wouldn't bother telling Jim because, you know, Jim, if he even responds, would lose his shit at me. But it's like, in my opinion, Dave knew what he was doing by saying that. It's like he knew that Jim wasn't going to sit at home and go, oh, you know what? Dave, who I'm pissed at, is right. I'm not going to be pissed at him anymore. But
yeah,
it's like, yeah, it's one of the, seriously, whatever. But
anyway, this was a perfectly fine little enhancement match.
Yeah. By the way, this is the promo that I should have gone. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't have gone because it's a great 4-minute Jim Cornette promo. I'm just saying I would have had a lot of time to go clean up iced tea mix off my floor if I waited till this promo. But let's go to another fantastic Jim Cornette promo. It's building up shockingly the last Tangle in Tennessee and the Rage in a Cage.
With us right now, Jim Cornette, and of course
there ain't no fans. You know what they are? They're fanatics. Fanatics is what they are. Rock and roll through thick and thin. It makes me sick.
Let me tell you, I know it's got to be running through your mind very heavily right now. The Volunteer Slam, for instance. What about the last Tangle in Tennessee? Those are two things I know are weighing pretty heavily on you right now.
First of all, let me say one thing. You don't tell me anything. You don't know what's running through my mind. As a matter of fact, you don't know what's running through your own mind. You're in a fog, just like Bob Armstrong is. Now, let me just say this about the Rage in the Cage at the Volunteer Slam in case you idiots out there don't realize the magnitude of this match. This is the way it goes. There's going to be 5 status matches, 5 single matches. The team that wins the majority of those matches will gain the advantage in the Rage in the Cage. There's 5 men on each team. Stan Lane and Tom Pritchard, Killer Kyle, Kevin Sullivan, and a Tasmaniac against the Rock and Roll Express, Brian Lee, and our old friends Robert Fuller and Jimmy Gold in the Stud Stable. Now, when that Rage in the Cage match gets started, we're going to choose one man and they're going to choose one man. They go in the cage and they wrestle for 5 minutes. At the end of that 5-minute period, the team with the advantage sends another man in. It's 2-on-1. And for 2 minutes, anything that those 2 men can do to one man is legal because there ain't no rules. Every 2 minutes thereafter, somebody new comes in the match. But the team with the advantage at the first always has the advantage. And if we win most of those status matches, we're always going to have the advantage. 2-on-1, 3-on-2, 4-on-3. You get the picture. The match can't end until all 10 men are in the ring. And then it's either submission, make your opponent give up, or there's going to be 5 sets of handcuffs on one side of the cage, 5 sets of handcuffs on the other side, so you can handcuff all the members of one team to the cage, and you can win it that way. And then, of course, by the way, they would be completely helpless.
That's right. That's right.
Then 6 days later, the last Tangle in Tennessee, where these men and the Rock and Roll Express, regardless of what kind of condition they come out of that Rage in the Cage, they get in the ring in Johnson City to settle it. Bragging rights for the whole promotion.
That's right.
I've waited a long time. I've waited 10 years to say that me, Jim Cornette, was personally responsible for my team getting rid of the Rock and Roll Express, and this is the closest we've ever been. So you say, are we ready to take the risk? Yeah, we've talked about it, we've thought about it, and we're ready to take the risk, because getting rid of the Rock and Roll Express is worth just that much. But there's one thing that still grates in my craw. Bob Armstrong, you have done every single thing that you could possibly do to stack the deck against me and my men. Everything that you could think of, there's nothing on God's green earth that you haven't done to make sure to screw up Jim Cornette and the heavenly bodies. Well, I want to inform you of one thing, but what? Hey, I've had it with him.
Commissioner,
He's got to stick his nose in everywhere.
I just wanted to deliver a message to you personally. Now, in the rage in the cage, there are no rules. Is that right?
That's exactly. Well, you ought to know you thought this stinking thing up.
Let me tell you this. We'll probably see more violence than anybody's ever seen in the Smoky Mountains.
You got that right, brother.
But somebody has got to be there to raise the winner's hand, right? Somebody's got to be there to declare the winner.
Raise our hands.
That's right. Well, I just wanted to tell you personally that I'm going to be the referee in that match, and I'm going to watch you very closely.
Wait a minute. No. You can't do it. You can't do that. Get your mother.
Well, fans, you've heard it right here, and that's what'll happen. We'll be back.
The seeds are being watered. It is corny. Like this is one of those things that, like, sometimes people in modern day wrestling don't get. It's like Corny was great at playing the comedic foil and to make and have funny little moments here. And then there were times like this where it is time to have an epic flip out of serious epic proportions, and that's what we had here. Corny flipping his lid at Bullet Bob, naming himself the guest referee at Rage in the Cage. This is Bullet Bob, the guy that is screwing him 10 ways from sideways. It's making Bob Eaton leave the company, is deciding who the tag team champions are, is putting his men in matches that he doesn't want them to be in. And this has been going on for over a year now. For over a year. This company's been on TV for 66 weeks, and we've had 66 weeks of build to the moment that we all know is coming. And it's like, it just makes perfect sense. Like, it makes perfect sense that Bullet Bob will be doing all this stuff to Cornette, because Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies have, flaunted the rules since day one. And it makes sense that Corny would be losing his mind at, Bullet Bob doing all this. And it's so obvious that things are coming to a head. Like we're getting to the point where now every week Cornette's got a new reason to be pissed at Bullet Bob. And it's like, it's just eating him alive. And, it's not something that just came out of nowhere. It's something that you can sit here and watch episode 1 and be like, hey, Bob was already sticking it to Cornette on episode 1. And
so Jim Cornette is a polarizing figure among wrestling fans today. But like even the people who will claim that he was never a good booker, which I don't believe is true at all, because I really like this shit. I think it's an issue of some people just don't appreciate Southern style wrestling. But as a booker, he's not the best booker ever or anything, but this is a very enjoyable show. But anyway, it even people who shit on him as a booker, as a promoter, whatever, nobody says that he wasn't one of the best managers of all time.
No. And, one of the best characters of all time, say.
Absolutely. And just, this motherfucker is so insane. And nobody does Enraged better than Jim Cornette. No. Then his first thing is, call your mother. You gotta go call mama.
Oh my God. You weren't here when Rock and Roll Express showed the picture of Jim's mom, were you?
No.
I don't want to spoil things for you, but it wasn't a picture of Jim's mom. It was a picture of a dog in a rocking chair with curlers and, a dress on and dressed up like an old lady.
Well, that's rude.
Well, that was another Cornette epic freakout that just really worked.
I bet.
Now, I got to ask you, because in the lead up to that, the Rock and Roll Express came out and said that they had this picture of Mama Cornette. And Jim Cornette came out and was like, how dare you have a picture of my mama? You don't have the right to have this picture of her, yada, 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 yada. And then they do the reveal and he loses his shit. Do you think it would have been better if Cornette would have acted like, oh my God, like you have a framed picture of my mother, my wonderful, beautiful, amazing, generous mother, and you're going to show it to all these people, like, you know, because the Rock was like, oh, let bygones be bygones. We're sorry we did all this stuff, you know, and here's a gift for you. And do you think it would have been better if he would have played it like, oh my God, that's such a nice thing, and then flipped out, or the how dare you, and then lost his shit?
That might have been better, but I do understand, like, in theory, Jim Cornette has absolutely no reason to trust the Rock and Roll Express to have anything kind to say about him or anything he's associated with. They've been feuding for, fucking 9 years at this point?
Longer than 66 episodes.
Yeah.
So Cornette is still so enraged, so pissed off, that when he comes up with Bobby Eaton for the main event, which is Beat the Champ TV title holder Bobby Eaton versus Primetime Brian Lee, Jim Cornette couldn't even do the introduction.
I really appreciated how, like, visibly just still fucking enraged he was when he came out for the Beat the Champ match.
Yes. So to set the stage, Eaton has won 4 matches as TV champion. If he wins today, he is our first person to retire undefeated as champion, and he gets a bonus of $5,000. However, as we already know, Bullet Bob has stipulated that whenever Eaton is no longer champion, he must leave Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So either way, win, lose, or draw, this is Bobby Eaton's last match, which is just adding more fuel to the fire.
This is a Bobby Eaton leaves town match.
Yes. No matter what happens, Bobby Eaton's going to leave town. So Bobby Eaton, by the way, did not phone it in on his last match.
No, he didn't.
Primetime Brian Lee gives him a running shoulder tackle in the ring that Bob Eaton sells by bumping and bouncing out of the ring and halfway up the floor. And it was not done comedically. Like, he wasn't Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam against Hogan and, you know, being a show off, being an asshole. This was him legitimately selling what would happen if a 6'6", 290-pound shit brick house ran you over.
Phenomenal. Man, I'm going to miss Bobby on these shows. Goddamn, that was good.
Eaton, of course, gets a heat. He throws Brian Lee outside. Now, what did Cornette do? He did some kind of cheap shot, and I rewound it 2 or 3 times, and I could not figure out. I don't think he hit him with the racket. Maybe he hit him with, like, the edge of the racket, maybe. But he did something to Primetime Brian Lee.
I didn't even notice.
Okay. So Lee actually starts his comeback after getting hit by Cornette. He gives Eaton a backdrop on the floor, but before they get back in the ring, Eaton shoves him into the ring post. So Brian Lee smacks the back of his head on the ring post. Lee then, of all things, goes to the top rope for a top rope crossbody, but misses, but then wins with a running clothesline. So
yeah,
the king is dead. Long live the new king, Primetime Brian Lee, your new Beat the Champ TV title holder.
I just feel kind of wistful, kind of sad that this is the last time we're going to see beautiful Bobby.
So Corny attacks Primetime Brian Lee, but of course Brian Lee gets the better of it. All three heavenly bodies now attack Brian Lee. The Rock and Roll Express run in to even the odds, but Killer Kyle runs in, so the heels stand victorious as they lay out the baby faces. And also, this is like legitimately the taping of this match was Bob Eaton's last match on April 19th. Like, he didn't even do like house shows afterwards to like up to this date or whatever. Like, this this is it. And he was only here like 3 months. Like,
that was the deal. That was the deal that Cornette made with Watch, right? That he get Bobby for 90 days.
I guess I don't think he's ever actually specified that before, but it would make sense. But I mean, what?
Yeah, I feel like he said that it was supposed to be for 90 days.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is about 90 days, but yeah, Watts is long gone from WCW, and I would assume that since he put snot on Eric Bischoff's car, that him and Bischoff aren't BFFs at this point.
Yeah, no, but Watts, when he realized that he was about to leave, he's like, "I'm going to put our deal in writing so they can't fuck you."
Yeah, they Smoky Mountain got $25,000, and the use of Bob Eaton and Arn Anderson. Which, gotta say, it was a pretty good deal for them. I will say though, now obviously, this wasn't something that they could have just decided to push off a bit. But I am sitting here like, okay, the last few months, we've lost Paul Orndorff, we've lost Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, we're about to lose Stan Lane, and in response, we're getting Chris Candido, Bobby Blaze, and basically, like, no matter what you want to say about the actual wrestling talent, and I don't mean to disparage the wrestling talent of Candido, Blaze, and a few others on their way in, it is a huge drop in star power.
Is this the peak of Smoky Mountain star power?
I don't think so. Because, I mean, yeah, Sullivan can't be here much longer either. Like, maybe he is, but I don't think he is.
I think he's here for at least through the end of the year, I think.
I think he's very much like off and on kind of thing. Like, maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
But by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you ever watch those localized promos, it's always easy to tell what the TV tapings are, because it'll say things like, "Oh, Harlan, Kentucky, we're gonna have 10 matches with 22 wrestlers and all seats only $6." Like, yeah, in case you weren't sure, that is definitely a TV taping, because they weren't going to do 10 matches on a house show. So let's go to the end of the show. Rock and Roll Express, Primetime Brian Lee cutting a quick promo here.
All right, it was a great one for this young man right here now, our television champion, Primetime Brian Lee. Brian.
Well, Bob, it was a great one. What you're looking at is the next tag team champions here, and Primetime Brian Lee, who's the TV champion. Now, Cornette, I want to tell you something.
Let me say something. Let me get one thing clear here. Am I to understand that Jimmy Golden and Robert Fuller, the stud stable, is going to have to bail you guys out one more time, just like you wish we'd have done just a few minutes ago there? Let me tell you something. If we do, you darn sure better hold up your end, pal.
Let me tell you something, buddy. We will hold up our end of the bargain. But let me tell you something, if you double-cross us, just take a little bit of friendly advice. There's nothing in this world I can do about you jumping on me, but there's a hell of a lot I can do to get you off.
All right, fans, it's going to be a while when the Rage in the Cage and the last Tangle in Tennessee. Next week is going to be Stan Lane against...
Poor Primetime Brian Lee. No one wants to let him talk. Why isn't this the gimmick with Horner? Every time Horner gets given the microphone, somebody walks in and interrupts him.
It's Horner's office.
Very true. By the way, I do have a little bit of an update here about Kevin Sullivan. So he is here off and on until the end of the year. Like, pretty much the end of his full-time run, quote-unquote, is next month. But he only has one more TV match at least one more TV taping match, because I mean they air, house show matches every so often. But his last TV taping match is in August. It's going to air on episode 83.
Huh.
Yeah, so 17 episodes from now will be our last Kevin Sullivan match.
Leave the memories alone.
We should be playing that for Bobby Eaton. So
leave the memories alone. I don't want to see the way it is and how it used to be.
Oh Lord, that was one of those songs that just got like shoved down your fucking throat by WWE there for 5 minutes.
Yes.
So next week, Stan Lane versus Jimmy Golden and Primetime Brian Lee in his first defense in a show that is essentially going to go head to head with Volunteer Slam, or I guess not really head to head because Volunteer Slam I think is on the 9th. So next Saturday is the go home show for Volunteer Slam.
Huh. Yeah,
yes.
Makes sense.
Yep. All right, so that does it. Now, thanks to all of our fun fucking audio issues, I did not do our normal intro this week, where I talk about how we're starting on episode number 1, going all the way to episode number 200, yada, yada, yada. But the one thing we always do before we finish things up is I tell you what else is happening this week in wrestling. Because I can tell you May 1st, 1993, until I'm blue in the face, because that, by the way, was the date of this show, which I may or may not have actually said at all during this episode. May 1st, 1993. However, telling you what else happens, give you some frame of reference. So you sit here and go, oh, wait, that happened? I remember that. And, you get to go, oh, yeah, that. So the big news, Conan retired. Yes, that Conan. After losing to Cien Caras in front of 48,000 people in the main event of the first ever Triple Mania show. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match that Conan actually lost 2 straight falls in. Now, Conan definitely retired here and definitely did not wrestle at least 1,054 matches since. He also definitely doesn't return on July 31st, 1993. And he definitely doesn't start feuding with Jake Roberts, who appeared live for the first time at Triple Mania. He had previously done some pre-taped heel promos.
Triple A started pissing on stipulations immediately upon forming, didn't they?
I mean, they're less than a year old at this point. Because they started like the middle of May, 92. I guess this is what happens when you start a company in 92. And I know Smoky Mountain technically started in 91. But for the sake of argument, it really started in 92.
Yeah.
So, Wrestling Dontaku, the first ever New Japan Dontaku show, happened at, forgive me if I mispronounce this, the Fukuoka Dome before 55,000 people. So it was a big week as long as you don't promote wrestling in the United States, apparently. In the semi-main event, the WWF World Champion Hulk Hogan beat the IWGP World Champion, the Great Muta, in a non-title match. This was said to have been one of Hogan's best matches ever, with Hogan wanting to prove a point that he was a great worker. And yes, the match between 2 world champions could not main event over Inoki, because Inoki booked himself and Tatsumi Fujinami to defeat Riki Choshu and Tenryu in the main event. Now, arguably, and Trae is our Japan expert here, arguably you could say that tag match was definitely a bigger deal than champion versus champion, but still, that seems like a much bigger match than the tag match.
So I'm looking at my my listing here. And I watched this, let's see, when did I watch this? I watched this show on April 29th, 2022. And I have a higher rating for the Inoki and Fujinami against Choshu and Tenryu match than I did for Hogan and Muta.
Interesting. I'm assuming either you didn't think the Hogan match was very good or you thought that the Inoki match was out of this world.
No, I mean, one was 3.5 and one was 3 3/4.
Okay, so it's not, I mean, maybe go to your way to see because it's one of those. It's if you ever saw the GIF of Hogan doing the rolling
Yeah.
arm bar, I believe it's from this match.
Yeah, if most people, if they've seen one Hulk Hogan in Japan match, it is this one.
Yeah. Now,
So should
of course, I think we're about to talk about the same thing.
Yeah, go ahead and finish.
The most famous moment of that show was not Hulk Hogan beating the Great Move. It was not Antonio Inoki putting himself in the main event over two world champions wrestling. It was Hulk Hogan's post-show press conference where he, the WWF champion, said that the WWF title is a toy or a trinket that can easily be won, while the IWGP title was the real world title that was really hard to win. Obviously, that got him a lot of heat over with his coworkers in New York.
I mean, to be fair, it took him about 20 seconds to win that title, so I get what he's going for there.
I could even understand the thought process, like A, that, but also B, it's like you're trying to say that this IWGP title is the title that you really want. And you know that there are detractors who are like, well, you're just the cartoon champion. And, the whole point of it was that, oh, look, see what a wrestler I am. Like, yeah, I can be a bit of a cartoon over in the US, but here in Japan, I'm a serious wrestler, and serious wrestlers wrestle for serious title belts, like the IWGP title. And
so what's your best Hogan match? What do you think?
Honestly, like, I mean, how do you judge a best Hogan match? Because, like, I don't know of how many 4-star matches Hulk Hogan has ever had, but I mean, he had a pretty good match with Kurt Angle in 2002. You know, I don't even know what, like, I mean, probably a Savage match somewhere, but I couldn't pick one out off the top of my head. Him and Slaughter was actually, better than it had any right to be.
Which one?
At WrestleMania. But I mean, that was like Slaughter, like past his prime, Sergeant Slaughter decided to break out his bump card for 2 matches that year when he won the title and when he lost the title. Because him and fucking Warrior, sure, Savage and Sherry had a big part to do with it too, but Slaughter, for 3 minutes until he gassed out, was more than holding up his end of the bargain in that match.
Slaughter was a fucking bump machine in his day, man.
Yeah. But Hogan, like, it's hard to like really pick the best Hogan match. Because what again, it's like, especially once like 86-ish happened, it's like he realized that he could get away with a lot less, and he got away with a lot less. Like,
yeah.
Honestly, the first match that came to my mind was the one against The Rock, but it's like, was that match really that great, or was it just the atmosphere that made it great? Or you can't have one without the other, I guess.
It's mostly atmosphere. But that is on the list because it has to be. Like the Savage match at WrestleMania 5 is great. There's probably better Hogan and Savage matches out there. I really like the Kurt Angle match. I like the Shawn Michaels match where Shawn way overdid it because kind of fuck Hulk Hogan.
It's like
I think the Warrior match at WrestleMania 6 is like one of the biggest miracles in wrestling history.
Oh, I mean, definitely. But talk about Shawn, honestly, Shawn throwing a mid-90s temper tantrum in 2005, is why I don't really consider it, because he knew before the original angle where he turned on Hogan, he knew what the finish was then. And he was obviously in a position where if he didn't want to wrestle Hogan and do a job to Hogan, He could have just said no, use somebody else, but he did, and somehow he thought to himself, hey, I can convince Hogan to do the job. And that's the weird thing. Like, I guess what the hell got him so pissed off about that? Because it's not like Shawn, this was like 97 Shawn who refused to put people over, and now he was between a rock and a hard place. Shawn lost a lot, like when he came back. Like, and it wasn't just to Triple H. Like, he lost, he helped put, he's a big part of what made Edge, took Edge to that next level. You know, he tapped out clean to Kurt Angle at WrestleMania. He fucking, like, the week after SummerSlam, he does a relative to the moment clean job to Chris Masters. It's like,
I think that Shawn believed that he could outpolitic Hogan, and nobody in the history of wrestling can outpolitic Hogan.
oh yeah, like the next year at SummerSlam, Hogan wrestles Randy Orton, and of course Hogan, all he has to do is wave his hand to his ear, and the crowd loses their shit. And later on in the same show, DX wrestled the McMahons, and they came out and did not get the same reaction, despite almost literally begging and pleading the crowd to give it to them.
I remember liking that Hogan Orton match at the time.
I liked it. I thought it could have been a lot better, but that was that SummerSlam where it's like, for the time being, that SummerSlam was deeply booked because it was like Cena Edge when that was a hot feud, DX versus the McMahons, what's his name, Hogan versus Orton. I'm blanking on literally any other match, but I just remember it was a deep card from 1 to like 6.
Was that in Boston?
Yeah. And this is before I lived here, so that was not my first SummerSlam. This Saturday in Cleveland, that's my first SummerSlam.
That's SummerSlam is the only one of the big four I have not been to. My God, this is a really good card. Yeah, Edge and John Cena, DX against the McMahons, Batista, King Booker, the Ric Flair, Mick Foley, I Quit match, which is really good. Hogan Orton match, which is really good. The Big Show versus Sabu in an Extreme Rules match for the ECW title. I bet that was fun. And the opener, Chavo Guerrero and Rey Mysterio.
And that was that wasn't when Vickie turned heel. Vickie came down and cost Chavo the match, or cost Ray the match. And then on SmackDown that I was at, she officially turned heel, which, especially at the time, like, what a fucking random ass thing. Vickie Guerrero turned heel. Like, you know, the widow of Eddie Guerrero. Like, I get we're trying to give her a paycheck and yada, yada, yada. But, like, really? And then she's a total fucking heat magnet. Who would have fucking thunk it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, should I go through this Wrestling Dontaku card?
Sure. You really wanted to talk about it last week, so go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the things I love is that sometimes in, like, the official, you know, listings and stuff for big Japanese shows, matches will have titles. Like, a tagline, a subtitle for the match. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I don't know what you're gonna say, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. So the best part about this is that all of these matches have taglines. So let's go through it. The opener, Hukan Trio versus Young Lions Top 3. The team that I guess constitutes the Hukan Trio: Akira Nagami, Takayuki Iizuka, and El Samurai. Akira Nagami, who would better known by the mononym Akira. Takayuki Iizuka, better known as Takashi Iizuka. El Samurai is best known as El Samurai. Against, are you ready to hear the team that were Young Lions in 1993?
I'm gonna bet, like, and I could be a little off, but like Yuji Nagata, Manabu Nakanishi, and like Kensuke Sensaki.
You are really close. Sasaki started in like 86.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the Young Lion team was Hiroyoshi Yamamoto, who's
Which is
better
Tenzan.
known as Tenzan, Osamu Nishimura, and Satoshi Kojima.
Wow. I like
Akira
Kojima.
Nogami. Go ahead.
Yeah, like Kojima in '93. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but it's like, man, that is a long ass time ago.
They were just babies. And Akira Nogami pinned Yamamoto with a dragon suplex. The second match, the Battle of Young Master. Michiyoshi Ohara defeated Akitoshi Saito with a powerbomb. Akitoshi Saito recently announced he will call it a career in I think in November. So want to wish him well on a very successful career. See the third match. Okay. So Hogan is on this show. So guess who he brought with him?
I mean, if Beefcake's wrestling in the Tokyo Dome, I'm sure he's wrestling in the Fukuoka.
Raise the Professional. Brutus Beefcake with Jimmy Hart beat Masa Saito. It was not a good match.
Really?
I gave it a flat 1 star for an 8.5 minute match. That's fucking brutal.
I mean, that sounds pretty good for a Brutus Beefcake match.
The next match, Super Dimensional Hero Battle Dream Showdown.
What a
Tiger Mask. Tiger Mask, and this is Tiger Mask 3, Koji Kanemoto. Beat Jushin Thunder Liger with a Tiger Suplex hold. Very good match. Kanemoto is kind of like Masada. Like Koji Kanemoto is much better as Koji Kanemoto than he ever was as Tiger Mask. He was never comfortable being Tiger Mask. It didn't last that long, but this is a good match.
Wasn't Ishii Tiger Mask too, or
Ishii was a Black Tiger at one point.
Okay.
So next match, Gold Rush in New Japan. Sting defeated Scott Norton by Dr. Stop due to blood. I think something inadvertent happened there. I don't remember exactly. There was a weird but I guess it made sense. Okay, I'm seeing my notes back. Yeah, so at the time I put together that Norton was bleeding to protect him because he's one of New Japan's top foreign stars, but he had to lose here to Sting because, political considerations. So anyway, that was a little weird. And as you noted, this would be the first time ever that Sting and Hulk Hogan appeared on the same card. Okay. The next match, the Real Masters of Wrestling, the Ultimate Shigatonen Showdown. Yoshiaki Fujiwara beat Hiroshi Hase with, guess what, a Fujiwara armbar. Super Explosion Bout. The Hellraisers, Hawk Warrior and Power Warrior, what are known as Road Warrior Hawk and Kensuke Sasaki, beat Masahiro Chono and Shinya Hashimoto. And in the semi-main event, Super Dream Match Real American. Hulk Hogan with Jimmy Hart beat the Great Muta with the Axe Bomber. And in the main event, Special Climax 4 Kings. Antonio Inoki and Tatsumi Fujinami beat Riki Choshu and Genichiro Tenryu when Fujinami pinned Choshu with George Weingross's stable finishing move, the Ground Cobra Twist.
That sounds like a tremendous show. But I actually had it listed that Hogan won with the big boot and leg drop, so I was a little thrown off. They said he won with the Axe Bomber. But my favorite New Japan name, and keep in mind they don't really break them out as much these days, but it was a Cody Rhodes match. I think it was against Kota Ibushi, and it was listed as a handsome battle. I'm like, if anybody in this company is going to be in a handsome battle, it's going to be Cody Rhodes.
Oh my god! So I went to my listing for all the Wrestle Kingdoms, and these fucking titles at the early Wrestle Kingdoms are phenomenal. The very first match in the history of Wrestle Kingdom. Welcome to the Tokyo Dome, New Year Funny Waltz. El Samurai, Masanobu Fuchi, and Ryusuke Taguchi beat Nobutaka Araya, Akira Raijin, and Kikutaru. Artistic tag team battle, Jado and Gato against Nosawa and Mazada. Rocking your hearts out, fucking outlaws. Great Bash Heel beat the team of Travis Tomko, Bull Buchanan, and D'Lo Brown. And then I'm not going to do all these. I'm going to skip to the best one. Dangerous Rapture. Toshiaki Kawada beat Shinsuke Nakamura.
And by the way, it was Kota Ibushi versus Cody Rhodes in the Handsome Battle.
That was a handsome battle.
Thank you, Alan_Cheapshot on Twitter.
Right on.
So, all right. So that is going to bring us here to the end, I think. You know,
was that the only thing of note that happened this week? Was there anything else going on?
Triple Mania.
Oh yeah, you said that.
Yeah. All right. Before we leave, do you have anything else you want to say to our fine listening audience?
MVP and Shelton Benjamin beat Masato Tanaka and Yujiro Takahashi in the Tokyo Monster War.
And hey, it was Shelton X Benjamin.
They gotta bring these fucking names back, man. They need to hire somebody. That's their whole job, is that they come up with names for the matches.
You're telling me Jado and Gato have something more important to do than to come up with wacky names for these matches?
Look, I don't know what the fuck. All Jado does is drop the fall in
Gato's
tag matches.
papers. All right, so that's gonna do it for this week. Thank you everybody for listening. Enjoy a handsome battle. And my brother and I may be here Saturday for SummerSlam. We'll see if I can convince him to tape a show at midnight when we get back to our hotel. But thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.